Yo! Nah, these niggas is fucking wildin'.
You're not dying.
Okay. I didn't shoot him. I didn't shoot him.
Stop! He's bleeding out. He's his head. No, you're
Come here, cuz. Come here, cuz. Come here, cuz. Don't worry about it. I got you, cuz. Don't worry about it. Fuck out of here, nigga. I wish you would, nigga. Come here, cuz. Come here, bro.
Police shot my cousin in the head. Police shot my cousin in the head for no reason.
Fuck out of here, man.
He can't breathe. He can't breathe, though. He can't breathe. Pick him up. I'm dying. I'm dying.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. So in St. Louis, there was another brother, Anthony Smith, who was shot and killed by the police. And to no surprise, and I don't know how this stuff is still a surprise to any of our people at this point, but to no surprise, this officer was found not guilty and justified for murdering another one of our brothers. And there's always going to be people out there who find a way to justify it, but let's look at what happened to see how this murder was justified.
In 2011, St. Louis police officers Jason Stockley and Brian Bianchi tried to arrest drug suspect Anthony Lamar Smith on a parking lot. Videos newly obtained by the Post-Dispatch made by a business and by a police SUV are shown here, synchronized with previously published video from a bystander's cell phone. Smith's Buick flees, bumping the SUV and brushing Stockley, who fires and misses. A pursuit ends in a crash, and Stockley gets out and fires 4 shots with a pistol, killing Smith. Stockley twice returns to the police vehicle to drop off an unused rifle and to rummage through a duffel bag. After Smith is pulled out of the Buick, Stockley gets into the vehicle. This year, prosecutors charged Stockley with first-degree murder based on undisclosed new evidence. Charges say Stockley was heard saying during the pursuit that he was going to kill Smith. Officials have not accused Stockley of planting the revolver, but, they said, tests disclosed only Stockley's DNA on the weapon.
West Florida, follow that clear 1242. 11. 11, slow everyone down, subject to custody. Clear 1242. Yeah, got him. My subject is going to be in custody at West Florida, Central 1243. Uprising in custody.
Jason Stockley was charged with first-degree murder in the death of Mr. Anthony Lamar Smith. A bench trial began August 1st after the defense requested a waiver of a jury trial over my office's objection. Needless to say, I'm disappointed with the court's decision. While officer-involved shootings are very difficult to obtain a guilty verdict, I am confident that we presented sufficient evidence at a trial to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jason Stockley was guilty of murder in the first degree. But at the end of the day, it was the judge who served as the finder of fact, and in this case, who had the legal duty to determine the outcome of this case. As an officer of the court, I must respect Judge Wilson's decision, but I stand by the evidence we presented in court. I understand the verdict has created frustration and anger for many in our community. I'm frustrated as well. Destruction of our community is not the answer. This is not the time to allow a few in our community to create senseless destruction and cause useless devastation. We cannot let the naysayers and guardians of the status quo let us miss this opportunity to seek real change. I mean, we have to look at the way we have officer-involved shootings are investigated. We need to look at how we move forward. And how we move forward is we have to look at how we have an independent investigation. Right now, the police department investigates themselves. So if we want to have a fair and unbiased investigation, we need to address that investigation so we can pursue justice fairly, regardless of the outcome.
Now, the first thing, when you look at this case, notice every time they describe Anthony Smith, they say the drug suspect in an attempt to criminalize him. Now, the problem for them is that the drug epidemic is going on in their community. I mean, it's in the news every other day. And the more they help these white kids who are drug addicts, the more it contradicts what they say. The more they look like hypocrites for how they treat black suspects, and it comes apparently evident what the difference is. Now, this cop, Jason Stockley, decided to not have a jury trial. He decided to have a bench trial where it's just the judge. And even if he would have had a jury trial, he probably would have still been found not guilty. Because what our people have to realize is that half of the country right now is out fully backing the police and their actions of murdering us. If the energy in this country right now isn't waking our people up, I don't know what will. So it really wouldn't have mattered either way. But he decided to have a bench trial. And Judge Timothy Wilson said that the prosecutors failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jason Stockley's use of deadly force was not justifiable self-defense. Which is the same old story I feared for my life. They're not even clever to come up with new creative ideas. It's the same thing over and over. Now, in this case, this cop, Jason Stockley, actually said while he was following them that I'm going to kill this motherfucker. But I'm sure Judge Timothy Wilson tried to justify it by saying, well, you know, people say I'm going to kill somebody all the time. Except this dude actually killed somebody after he said, I'm going to kill them. But of course, we get the same old story. But, you know, of course, it's difficult for them to come up with new stories. So he had to say that he feared for his life And the officer, Jason Stockley, said he thought that he heard his partner yell gun and saw the driver's hand on a gun as they rolled past him. So, of course he feared for his life. And he testified he did not draw his service revolver and fire until he saw Smith reaching around inside the vehicle after it was stopped. Now, the thing about this gun that they found, it only has Jason Stockley's DNA, which is kind of crazy in itself because there's no telling what he did with this gun before. And you actually have video evidence showing him going back to go get the gun. But this Judge Timothy Smith, said a fact that is central to the case is whether Smith had the gun when he was shot or not, and that the state's contention that the officer planted the gun is not supported by evidence. I guess they only had DNA and video evidence of him doing it, but, I guess that wasn't enough for this particular judge. And since they found him not guilty, this doesn't even count towards those crime statistics that they love to throw in our faces all the time. So now Officer Jason Stockley doesn't count. George Zimmerman didn't count. Officer Betty Shelby didn't count. Officer Jimenez didn't count. But I'm supposed to take this stat seriously. And we are living in a country, we are living in a nation that thinks this stuff is justified. And I'm not saying all, because nothing is all, but put it this way, there is enough racist people in America that can keep getting racist officials elected over and over and over. We live in a nation where anything we do is criminalized, and the way that they treat us is justified because we're criminals. But then turn around and take that same culture and make money off it, billions of dollars. Everybody make money off of our culture but us. And then they murder us and point at rap music in Chicago and say it's justified. And I wouldn't say that every cop is bad, but all it takes is that one cop to pull you over, and no matter what you do, right or wrong, God forbid you try to exercise any constitutional amendments or anything, and they can murder you and get away with it. And, my brothers and sisters, can you tell me what about that is different from 1817 to 1917 to 2017? They can always murder you and get away with it. The only difference between 1817 and 2017 is they may or may not go on trial for it. And if 350 years of the same shit haven't woken us up yet, then I don't know how long it's going to take.
I did not murder Anthony Lamar Smith. I did not plant a gun. As I testified at trial, and to homicide on the day of, it was an imminent threat to my life. I had to. The taking of a life is the most significant thing that one can do, and it's not something that is done lightly, and it's not something that should ever be celebrated, and it's just a horrible experience altogether. But sometimes it's necessary. This was a completely reactionary event. If he takes off on car, we follow. He turns left, we turn left. And unfortunately, you're reacting in those few seconds, and you have to make decisions based on limited information and limited time. And they're the most important decision you ever make, because it could be your last. And it's very stressful, and in the end, regardless of what happens, nobody wins. I do not remember stating that we or I are going to kill this motherfucker. I think, don't you know it? The first time that I heard that was when I met with the FBI. And I gave them the same answer that I'm giving you now, which was, I don't recall saying it, but I never denied it. I can tell you with absolute certainty that there was no plan to murder Anthony Smith during a high-speed vehicle pursuit. It's just not the case. And I wish that I could tell you exactly what that was and what it meant, whether it was just heat of the moment or whether it was part of a larger conversation. I really don't. I just don't remember. I thought that Anthony Smith's car at the end at West Forest and Acme had spun a complete 360 degrees, or actually more, to make it in the direction that it was. But when I watched the dash cam, I could see that it was just a 90-degree slide. Again, it's insignificant. It has nothing. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the decision making. It doesn't change how things are viewed or judged. But it just shows that my memory is not perfect, and neither is anyone else's. What I found to be most surprising, specifically from the cell phone videos that were released after my arrest, was how many officers were near the vehicle while I was searching it for the weapon. I saw everything first person. So, you know, if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. And I didn't have that type of view from above where you could actually see who's there, what are they doing. But you can plainly see that there is no attempt to deceive from my actions. The driver's side door is open. The back windows were blown out from the crash. And people were looking in while I was in there. There was definitely no bizarre behavior in my mind at all. Almost every resisting of arrest, doesn't have to be a fatal shooting. Every resisting looks bad. They never look good. So what you have to separate are the optics from the facts. And if a person is unwilling to do that, then they've already made up their mind, and the facts just don't matter. And to those people, there's nothing that I can do to change their minds. But any reasonable person who looks at the facts of the case will realize that the optics are nothing but an illusion.
Why is it so important for you to be so open about this?
Because I didn't do anything wrong. If you're telling the truth and you've been wrongfully accused, you should be shouting it from a mountaintop. And which is why I have no problem. And besides the gag order that was put in place, I've never had a problem discussing the facts of this case with anyone that I'm allowed to discuss it with. There's no question that it's off limits in terms of what occurred that day. As far as how I feel right now, I'm obviously currently pleased that there was that the right verdict came down, and it feels like a burden is lifted, but the burden of having to kill someone never really lifts.
Out in front of St. Louis City Police Headquarters, all is quiet right now. Protesters were here earlier making their voices heard, asking for interim Police Chief Lawrence O'Toole to step down. They have since left. Joining us now is Antoine Johnson. He is the brother of Anthony Lamar Smith. Antoine, thank you very much for a couple minutes of your time, sir.
What's up, man?
I'm sorry for your loss, for your family's loss. Our condolences. Your reaction to the judge's verdict this morning, your thoughts, your emotions today.
Man, the judge ain't do his job. He on the way to retire, so he didn't care less about the case. The whole time the trial was going on, that man was falling asleep at his stand. So he wasn't paying attention to the case. He already had his mind made up of what he wanted to do way before the trial even started and everything. That's why the barricades and stuff up all around downtown, but they supposed to have, we weren't supposed to say nothing about the trial or nothing, but everybody downtown, they already knew the outcome of this.
Antoine, your emotions about your reaction to the demonstrations today in the wake of the verdict, is that the right thing to do? Do you support those efforts? Your thoughts? I talked with your mom briefly on the phone earlier this morning. She was obviously distraught, upset, talking about still finding or trying to find justice for her son. Your thought about the demonstrations ongoing?
Man, we ain't done with this case. That was state. It's goddamn. It's federal. It's Supreme Court. We pushing it up on everything because my brother ain't just go down like that. Stockley committed a murder. He got to be withheld for his actions. All his actions that he did, he got to be held accountable for it. Him, Biaki, he can't plead the fifth next time, because when it ain't over, we still go push it. If we got to go out of town and go get other lawyers or whatever, we still go push it. We need justice for Anthony Smith.
So you guys intend to take this case further than just this verdict today?
Yes, this case ain't over. It could be my last damn breath. I'm pushing this case. I'm pushing this case regardless. Stockley, him and his family is not finna just sit back and be happy, he got off on a free murder when he said he was gonna murder this man. This man locked me up 8 days before he killed him and was like, oh, where your brothers at? Where your brothers at? Man, come on now. Then 8 days later, you kill him.
Anthony, let me ask you, the protesters today.
Then Biaki, he pleading the fifth. How you pleading the fifth? You an accessory to murder. If me and this man right here was to go kill somebody, and if I kill somebody and he was with me, he'll be charged with it too. But he could plead the fifth and not do nothing.
Anthony, let me ask you, the group today has called to shut various things down, the economies of St. Louis. Do you believe things should be shut down? What should your action be as a community in response to this decision?
Man, we come together, we go shut it down. Shut it down. Ain't no money go get made. Ain't no money go get made. We all just need to come together as people and just knock these other people out the box. The judicial system, they don't care about us. The justice system, they don't care about us. We out here, these laws not made for us.
It's the moment police say they fear and one the community says is becoming too common. 22-year-old Demeek McDonald shot twice by police Tuesday night. He was wanted by state parole.
A series of events have unfolded, but we won't know for certain until we speak with the officers.
Troy police hoping they can rely on what they call a close community relationship to help the ongoing investigation.
When you look at the previous shootings that we've had, especially in light of the mood of the nation, that we haven't had any serious uprisings.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
We feel like we get improper policing. We pay for improper policing.
Know that we love our children more than they love theirs.
Which is why McDonald's uncle, Messiah Cooper, is leading a protest, demanding answers.
And they need to know that this is not a Troy situation. This is a world situation.
Marching from the scene of the shooting to City Hall.
I'll answer their questions and talk to them about what I can disclose at this time.
A lengthy meeting resulting in some kind of understanding.
We have to give them time. I have to be a man of my word. I told him we would give him time.
We're told that Messiah and the mayor will continue to have an ongoing dialogue, not just about the investigation, but also about community relationships. As it comes to the investigation, it remains ongoing and the officers involved are on paid leave.
I am the son of a black woman who still worries about my safety from the bias of privilege and violence that accompanies it. I am a man who understands the pain of unjustified profiling, and I am the first district attorney of color, not only in Dane County, but in the state of Wisconsin. I conclude that this tragic and unfortunate death was the result of a lawful use of deadly police force, and that no charges should be brought against Officer Kinney in the death of Tony Robinson Jr. Recent violence around our nation is giving some in our communities a justification for fear, hatred, and violence. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Violence brings only temporary change. Violence, by creating many more social problems than it solves, never brings permanent peace."